everybody? Welcome back to the Co-op Stop, your monthly premiere video game chat podcast. Today, of course, next to me is, as always, my co-host, the one, the only, lost in the woods himself, Sam Woods. How are you doing?
Hi friends, hi Nick. I am good, busy, tired. It's that time of year, but I'm good. How are you doing?
Pretty good as well, man. I think we're probably just gonna jump into it, but man, I have done nothing for what it seems like nothing but play games for the last 2 weeks at least, if not the whole month.
Living the dream.
Yeah. So I did finally after many episodes of talking about it, because this game got away from me because other games came out and I got trapped in other games. But I finally finished the final episode of Tell Me Why, and it's very good. You should check it out. It's on Game Pass. 100% if you have, if you have an Xbox, if you have a PC, if you have a phone, check out. Or if you have a phone with xCloud compatible, I should say, check out Tell Me Why. Short 9-hour game, pretty in and out, as well.
Do you know what I thought you were going to tell me there? I thought finally he's going to say Persona 5 here.
Oh, man,
he's going to say Persona 5 Royal.
I wish. I haven't even put enough time in that game. And unfortunately, I don't think I will by the end of the year, because here we are.
Oh, yes.
But it's been a while, but I did jump into some Ghost of Tsushima Legends when it came out. I didn't stick with it as much as other people did. I enjoyed what I've played, and I would like to go and finish it at some point. The Legends part. I still haven't finished Ghost of Tsushima proper, but the game, very good. That just the fact that, and as much as I love Avengers, and with news, downtrodden of Avengers, it is not necessarily the greatest of games as a service games, and this kind of proves it, where Ghost of Tsushima Legends, the game that is attached to Ghost of Tsushima as the multiplayer mode, is 110% better structured and more fun, I would say.
I just have this weird, just this dislike for the Avengers game. Something about it just rubs me up the wrong way. I really don't like the way they monetized it and leaned so heavily into the games as a service. You have the Avengers license, think of I'm biased because I'm a single player kind of gamer, but you have the license for Avengers. Think of what a fucking kick-ass single player game you could make with it. Instead, you've tried to monetize it through the eyeballs, and look what's happened.
I don't think it's as monetized as people say it is. I didn't spend a dime, and I played that game for probably 40 hours. And that story, I would say, honestly, if it's $20, play it for the story. The story is the single player story that you want, basically, of the game. However, it is plagued with post-game problems. Of course, the just structure of the entirety of the game itself is kind of weird, but every character feels so good to play as, though. And I think that given more time to cook, this game could have been a lot better, even as a game as a service. However, it's a problem that we haven't got any content since launch. Any real prime content. The fact that I think it was Fran Mirabella from Kind of Funny played Glitch played the raid that they still haven't released yet. That was months ago. It's insane. But yeah, I want to go back to that, but at the same time, we shall see with the Kate Bishop DLC. And that's not even the game I was talking about, but also put that out there. And of course, I have got Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory, which is just a Kingdom Hearts rhythm game and nothing much else more. I think that we were promised a little bit more story, but I don't, and I haven't beat it yet. So, but I think that we got more of a rhythm game and a retelling of the story rather than a additional story. And I think from what I heard at the end, it does give you more to kind of chew on. But yeah, it's a 7 out of 10. Even as a Kingdom Hearts fan, it's 7 out of 10. And then I dabbled in some Ghost Runner. That game is Katana Zero and super hot, and it is 100% my jam. I want to go jump into it, but there are so many games. As seen by my list so far, I'm not even halfway done. I, of course, did the video review for Yakuza Like a Dragon. You can check Chris Cornelis, his review over at DualShockers.com, as well as the video review of that over at youtube.com/DualShockers. I played some Phasmophobia with some friends.
Before you skip ahead,
I don't know why.
How did you find Yakuza?
I love Yakuza. Yakuza is the reason. Yakuza Like a Dragon is going to be the reason that I don't finish Persona this year. Like, I feel like, and it's not because it's super similar, but I love like just the changes that they've done with the combat. I don't know why, but the turn-based combat feels much more interesting to me than the kind of real-time combat. Ichiban as a character is definitely, as someone who's only played Yakuza 0, take it with a grain of salt, I think Ichiban is the best character that they've ever produced. I think that the fact that there's a cast of characters around Ichiban builds it even better. The story is phenomenal. This one of the side quests. I mean, of course, one thing that Yakuza is known for is the tonal shifts that it can have at an instant. Where one moment I was at a gang hideout that basically was trying to convince the other gang that I committed some sort of treason, and then the next moment I was helping out a crawfish, I think it was. And there was a homeless guy that I don't know. Yeah, so I threw the crawfish, or Ichiban did, and he's like, "Oh no, not my Nancy!" And so you have to go rescue the crawfish, and then he's like, "Yes!" And he pulls a knife out of nowhere, and just like, I've been buttering this puppy up for a while, and I am ready to eat her. It's like, I thought it was your pet. And then you basically get the crawfish as a summon after you give him a premium sushi set. It is so wild. It is so great. If you haven't played a Yakuza game and you're much more into like the turn-based style, it's amazing. It definitely plays much more like Dragon Quest, as in the name of. And it's even referenced. Ichiban's like, I just want to be a hero like in the game Dragon Quest. And he says that not once, not twice, but several times. And it is so good. It kind of has that anime like like you can hear, like, just in your head you can hear the anime music. It's so endearing. Yeah, I Yakuza Like a Dragon is definitely on my game of the year list. Like, it is fantastic. I 100%, if anybody has the time and you want to check out a Yakuza game, this is the one to do it.
I'm gonna check it out on PS5 when it drops on PS5.
I think, yeah. So I had and we'll talk about this later, I'm sure, but when I transferred the data from PS4 to PS5, it didn't pop up. So I was like, oh, okay, well, they did say you can't transfer saves. However, just so everyone knows, the PS4 save file will transfer to the PS4 copy on PS5, which is a weird thing to say. But for whatever reason, the Ryu Gagatoku Studios has said that PS5s, like, once you upgrade to PS5, it won't transfer over. which kind of sucks. But at the same time, like
Yep.
I feel like if I want to play my story, the PS4 version is going to be fine.
Yeah.
It's not like a graphically intensive and great game that I'm going to want to necessarily upgrade to PS5 unless it has some cool DualSense additives, but we'll talk about that later. I played some Phasmophobia with some friends, of course, big game right now. Phasmophobia and Among Us kind of took the world by storm just over the past month and a couple months now with Among Us. And I think that they're great party games. And I jumped back into Animal Crossing for the Halloween stuff. It still shocks me at how much they've updated that game. The fact that you can dive and they have the Halloween stuff and there's so much stuff that I've just missed out on.
Yep.
But I'm glad to jump back into that game. Didn't do it for a whole long time, but I did really enjoy my time going back to my little island. Of course, I said I've been playing Among Us, and I think that brings us to what I will talk about. I'm going to say AC Valhalla, first off. Started on the PS4, but I moved over to the PS5, and we'll talk about it in a second. Sam, what have you been playing?
So it's been a wild one for me. I'll get to the busy period. I've played 3 games in the last month. Yakuza 0 from start to finish.
Nice.
That game is, like you said, just fucking wild. Really good fun. Just silly nonsense for the most part. The core story is interesting. The ending is fucking phenomenal. Really good game. Then you've got the side missions, which are just ridiculous. I'd played Yakuza Kiwami a couple of years back, and then I've dived into this. And this added like the businesses side of things, so managing your kind of cabaret club and your real estate business. I spent way too much time doing that. Way too long waiting tables in the damn cabaret club, doing the clothes and the makeup for my girls and kind of training those up. So
the Yakuza mini games are no joke. The Yakuza mini games are absolutely no joke.
Yeah. So I had a blast with that. I don't think I loved it as much as everybody else. I'd probably say it's like an 8.5. I thought there was some points where the pacing was a little bit off. It just slowed to a bit of a halt at points, but yeah, nothing major. And then I moved on to Pikmin 3.
Oh yeah,
on the Switch.
I forgot that game.
Such a good game. If you've not played Pikmin 3, or if you've never played a Pikmin game, play Pikmin 3. It's real-time strategy. It's so different to anything that Nintendo do.
You lost me with the real-time strategy. I'm not a real-time strategy guy at all. I'm willing to check out anything. However,
it's real-time strategy light. Like it's kid friendly. Just a nice chilled out game. Nothing stressful. I mean, it can get stressful at times, but like no pressure. Just log on, do a mission, turn it off again, kind of thing. And then the stress began. Finished Pikmin 3, and I've reviewed. I say reviewed. It should be out by the time this goes out. Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity for DualShockers. The code for that game came in the day it came out on the 20th of November. My girlfriend's birthday is the 20th of November. We're in a lockdown situation over here, so I wanted to kind of give her a special birthday weekend, few days. So trying to juggle a big game like Hyrule Warriors and write a review, plus keeping your girlfriend happy is a game in itself, let me tell you that. But yeah, Hyrule Warriors, fucking fantastic. Like, my God, I expected to like it because I love Breath of the Wild. I didn't expect to love it because of the kind of Muso formula. I expected just like go hack and slash some enemies, move on, hack and slash. Story really engaging. The kind of combat is way deeper than it has any right to be. It's not kind of the deepest combat, but it's far more than just kind of hacking and slashing. The characters, like the playable characters, blew me away. Some genuine surprises, some characters that I didn't expect to be able to play as, and just the whole world. There's so much to do. I would really recommend checking that out and checking out my review over at jewelshockers.com. And yeah, that's it. That's what I've played.
Wait.
I also played.
Are we getting into
PS5 game?
Are we getting into PS5? Okay, hold on before we do that. I'm gonna do a little shit post here. Is it better than Breath of the Wild?
Absolutely not. No, it's so.
So you're telling me it's a 4 then? I'm so kidding. I am so kidding. No, I love it's real talk though. As somebody who wasn't the biggest fan of Breath of the Wild, just personally, and is a big fan of the Musou genre. I'm not a huge fan, but I've played quite a bit, rather than the average bear. Do you recommend it to check it out?
So, I think you'll like it for different reasons than me. I liked it because it stayed incredibly true to Breath of the Wild in terms of like the story, that's sound, the sound effects, like so much fan service that they've done Breath of the Wild so much justice without kind of shoving it down your throats of like, we're the prequel to Breath of the Wild. It was just that perfect mix of like, whereas for you, I think it will cut out a lot of the stuff you didn't like about Breath of the Wild.
I think that's what I'm waiting for, is that the fact that it does seem to have more of a narrative than Breath of the Wild, in terms of like actually guiding you to like a end game sort of thing. Not that Breath of the Wild wasn't, but it just like particularly like I found a lot of just the roaming around boring. And I've said it before, like I as much as I shit post, like I think a lot of the reason that I don't like Breath of the Wild is because I'm an idiot. Like I look at so many videos on Twitter or YouTube of crazy shit that people does, and there is no doubt that Breath of the Wild is a masterpiece of a game. I just didn't find it to be as compelling as most people found it. So I think that the idea of putting these characters in a Musou setting and kind of having a nice like hack and slash a-thon, it's going to be much more up my alley. Did one question I will ask, or two questions I'll ask. One, have you played a Musou game before? What's your?
So I'd played coming into this the original Hyrule Warriors.
Okay.
Which this is so much better than. This is just so much more cohesive.
Well, and it's like it's a canon story, right?
Yeah, rather than just like let's throw loads of Zelda characters in and make a Musou game. I'd also played some Dynasty Warriors games, but I want to say I played them on like PS2, so like really old.
That was the heyday of them, man. Like I remember playing Samurai Warriors and Dynasty Warriors. That was the heyday. That was like, oh man, there's nothing like this out there. And there's still
Lu Bu was Lu
Bu's Dynasty Warriors.
Yeah.
I loved. See, I was much more of a Samurai Warriors guy because that was the first one that I was introduced into, and I loved like Cao Cao and Nobunaga Oda. Like I love those characters. Those characters are so dope to play as. But yeah, they kind of provide a nice like mindless hack and slash. I do enjoy that aspect of it.
I think you'd really like it. It's it's a good story. Now I've come away from it and had like, because I completed the game, went straight into writing my review. Probably not the best idea. You should probably sit on it for a little bit and let it stew, but just don't have time because I'm now reviewing another big game. Now I've had to sit on it a bit. the story kind of undoes a little bit of the story from Breath of the Wild.
Okay.
Not a massive problem for me. I would still score it and I would still review it the same. But for people that, like, some people maybe wouldn't like that so much. But yeah, overall, there's leveling. There's a whole leveling system, kind of crafting. Obviously, there was crafting in Breath of the Wild, but it's a different kind of crafting. Yeah. So yeah, I genuinely think you would like this game. Yeah. Do I think you would get $60 worth of enjoyment from it? Maybe not. But...
yeah. Do you think did it boost your love for Breath of the Wild at all? Because it is a canonical story?
Not possible, but
I mean,
it made me... It done two things for me. It made me want this story, but as Breath of the Wild. So rather than a Muso game, I would love to play this story.
So basically you run around, and then you maybe get a couple of story chunks here and there, and then... Yeah.
Exactly. I want this 30-hour story spread out over 80 hours for me.
Yeah.
And it's made me so excited for Breath of the Wild 2. Not that I wasn't already, but
yeah, I'm actually very excited for Breath of the Wild 2, just because, like, man, for as much as I shitpost about Breath of the Wild and how much of a turd I am when it comes to that game, like, I want to love that game. I feel so bad that I don't love that game. Like, I look at that game and it is 100% a me game, like, exploring and the art style and the story all, like, just hits me, but, like, when I load up the game, it just doesn't click.
Confession time. It takes me about 10 hours to get into it. I've played for it twice, and both times I've gone through the first 8 hours or so. First time I was like, this isn't as good as everybody said. 10 hours, bam, like, holy shit. And then second time I went back and played it earlier this year. I was like, is this not a good game? Am I remembering it wrong? And then I just hit a point where I'm like, oh, holy shit. Nope, this is fucking phenomenal.
I want that point. I do want that point. But, man, like, I've tried. So I first got it on the Wii U, and then I bought it on the Switch later. But I put like 20 or 30 hours into the Wii U, and it just didn't work for me. And then I put probably 10 to 15 hours on the Switch, and I just, like, I'm gonna drop this. Like, that's not... It still doesn't click with me.
That's a long time to put into a game and not enjoy it.
Yeah, I think that I was soured from the beginning, so it just didn't connect with me.
It's hard to change.
I want to go back to it at some point when it's not super crazy like it is right now, and try to just really sit down with it and give it an honest try. And not that I haven't before, but, like, really sit down, complete it, and see it through. Like, I've seen the ending, but, like, I haven't completed it myself. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with Breath of the Wild. I'm excited to play Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, but we're getting down to something. I don't believe something came out in the time that we last departed. I do believe it's a generation shifting thing. I believe it's a fifth of something. I sense dually that it will be highly respected in the next couple of years. Let's talk about the PlayStation 5. Sam, as somebody who has had the least amount of time with the PlayStation 5, I'm assuming, how do you like PlayStation 5?
Dude, so yeah, least amount of time by default, because we got it a week after you over here. It's fucking brilliant. The UI is so clean. Just the whole experience from start to finish has been great so far. The actual console, no matter how many times I saw it online, is still so much bigger than what I thought. But I'm super impressed with the UI, the just general experience with the console.
Yeah, I did a video that you can check out on this very channel if you haven't already, about the PlayStation 5. I really have enjoyed my time with it. I think it's the first time in a while. Like, obviously, we haven't had a generational leap in a while, but like from the PS4 to PS5, I'm like, oh, it looks a little bit better. You know, and as the PS4 went on, it looked a lot better. But I think this is a generational leap where load times aren't a thing. And like, I mean, Miles is a great use case for that, where you load up Miles and you are in that game within the first 30-40 seconds. Like, and I'm talking about loading it up from the home. I think the DualSense is the best controller ever made.
I agree.
I think that it iterates on so much, and I mean, also this is also coming from a guy that loved the DualShock 4. So take that with a grain of salt, I suppose. But I love just like the symmetrical analog sticks. I love the D-pad. But yes, with this new controller, we have the Rumble, the HD Rumble, otherwise known on the PlayStation as haptic feedback. And that, when I was playing Astrobot, like walking on the metal surfaces and feeling every single step, it was like, and not only that, but the way that when you jump into water, it feels like you're jumping in water through the controller. It's so cool. I do think the one thing I worry about the longevity of the DualSense functionality, they're like in the games that I've played of it having it so far, like Assassin's Creed barely uses it, like, period. And another thing is I think the middle ground, like I've said in my video, the middle ground is definitely Miles. Where I feel like, it feels like web slinging, but it's like the functionality isn't really there too much. I mean, it's there, and but it's not, super compelling. I think that if a game uses it too much, like say Astrobot, where it has like the minigun, I don't know if you got in that section, but it basically will go like this.
So Astrobot is the only game I've played on my PS5, and I've platinum.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, I totally agree. Obviously, I've got Miles Morales still sat in its cellophane wrapping. I've got Bloodborne in its cellophane wrapping. But from what I had with Astrobot, it's just unbelievable. Just like you say, the triggers. I love the triggers. There's something so satisfying about those triggers going really kind of taut and hard to press when you're kind of guiding the rocket ship or something like that. It's a very, very special controller. And let's talk about Astrobot, because that game is... Have you completed it?
Yes. Yeah. That game is such a love letter to PlayStation, and I never expected to love a tech demo as much as I did this game. There, of course, is the Wii Sports of the world. There is the Wii Play, all that stuff. But like this, I never thought, I want this to be spin off into its own game. I mean, we have got Astrobot, but I want a non-VR game so that people can really experience the love and care that this series is going to be probably down the line. It is. There's like I said in my video, there's things that I didn't even know were a thing. Like I unlocked a collectible for the PlayStation Portable GPS. I'm like, what?
Yep.
What is this game? This game, it's, I don't know, it's phenomenal. I could talk about it for days, but I'm gonna leave you to talk about it, because if you want to see my thoughts, you can check over that video.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. All of the little cameos in there are just fantastic. Like you say, it's just such a love letter to PlayStation, and collecting all those collectibles felt like there was a genuine reason for it, rather than some games that have collectibles for collectibles' sake. this is a short, few-hour tech demo where you want to collect everything and you want to go to that PlayStation Labo at the end.
I don't know how they did that, to be honest.
And just run around and jump on a PlayStation 1 and climb up the ladder and run across the kind of VR gun. And yeah, it's just, for like I say, for a tech demo, is unbelievable.
And it's so fun too. Like, even just as a 3D platformer, it is so much fun. I can't wait to go and platinum it. I've been kind of jumping between so many games just so I get the full experience of the PlayStation 5, so I can talk about it like on podcasts such as these. So I started Valhalla on PS4 and it ran well, but you can definitely tell it was much more geared to the PS5, and booting it up on the PS5, it is phenomenal. And I'm also going from the base PS4 to now the PS5, going from the 1080p textures to the 4K resolution is breathtaking. I think that the HDMI on my TV, I have a Sony X900H, and the HDMI, it supports HDMI 10 plus, not HDMI 10 plus, HDR 10 plus, and it's breathtaking. It is absolutely bonkers how great this game looks. However, I do have some gripes with the game in general. I do think that it kind of is much more packed in experience, and there's some choices that I'm like, I don't know why this is a gameplay choice. However, back to the PS5 section of it, it doesn't really use the DualSense whatsoever.
Yeah.
Which when I was talking with one of my friends over the week, it was like, well, it kind of makes sense because they're more partnering with Xbox, so it makes sense. Like, why would you have, this big functionality difference over at PlayStation when you have these deals with Xbox? I think Spider-Man Miles Morales is one of the best launch games of all time. I think it's a very short experience, but I think it does a lot to hold its own. And Miles, it's really cool to see Miles as a character become mainstream basically over the past 5 years or so. The one that I really, really dig on PS5 is Demon Souls, and that remake is so well done. It does feel like the PS3 game. I almost said PS4. PS3 game in gameplay. Like, I don't think they touched too much. But the visuals are amazing, and as somebody who does really like Souls, the parrying with the DualSense feels so good. It feels that is probably the best feeling I've actually felt. Like, that is it, like, with the adaptive triggers, because immediately when you hit it, it goes, it has like a pullback, and you feel like you're doing the parry itself. It's all real good. However, I want to say, before I move on to the rest of your thoughts, I want to say, full disclosure, it has crashed on me 3 different times. Hard crashed. Like, cut out the power. It went from on to off in a second, and that has been very frustrating. I did unplug my external hard drive, as that is what people have been saying has been the problem before, and it hasn't happened since. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that is. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts.
Yeah,
Sam, do you have any more thoughts?
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I've come woefully unprepared for this discussion, just because, like I say, it's been out for less than a week here now, and the majority of that week has been pretty much spent playing Age of Calamity. So what I have played, the kind of 8 hours or so that I've got on it, I'm super impressed. And let me tell you, it plays Game of Thrones Season 1 Blu-ray really well.
Yeah, that's great.
Because that's what it's also being used for.
Speaking of disc stuff, so when I bought Demon's Souls on disc, just because I had some Best Buy reward stuff. And when I put in the disc initially, for the most part, the console is quiet. But when I put in the disc initially, it goes. But I assume it's because it's reading the disc, because right after it kind of soothes down. But I have had some issues with that. I just wanted to add
the only disc related issue I've had is it didn't read the disc for the first 3 times I put it in, and turns out I was putting the disc in the wrong way around.
Yeah.
So that's the only disc related issues I've had have been all user error.
Yeah. Overall, I really enjoy the console. I'm excited to see where it goes, what gets developed for it. I do want to see these upgrades, like The Last of Us and God of War on the console. I want to see how God of War feels with the DualSense, especially with Ragnarok coming later.
Maybe I'll go back and try God of War again, because that was a game that didn't vibe with me.
I think that. So yeah, I went back and played Last of Us Part 2, and like I said before, I played Yakuza Like a Dragon on PS5 as well, and they seem to run marketably better, but it's not super noticeable. It's not like instant load times, but it does help. I think that they're definitely waiting for some more patches. I think in Yakuza's case, it's probably just because it's the PS4 version, there's not much changed. But Last of Us Part 2, like the load times did seem pretty fast, but at the same time, I don't think they seemed to be much faster than what it usually was. The ones that, and another nitpick with the PS5 that I do have, that I did also say in my video, is that there's certain games that I'm like, why didn't this get the treatment, especially even in the PlayStation Plus collection, like Bloodborne, where it is still locked at, like the 30 and under frames. I only can assume with the rumors that there's going to be a PlayStation 5 version, and that's why they didn't go back and try to make that a little like run better. Almost dropped some stuff. But yeah, there are some weird inconsistency issues. The other thing is, a while back, the Ubisoft announced that Assassin's Creed Syndicate wasn't going to work on the PlayStation 5. Well, it does work on the PlayStation 5. However, the lighting effects are just jittery as all get out. And you can definitely tell, like, they walked back their statement, but they're like, it still doesn't work real well on the PlayStation 5. But yeah, there are some gripes I have with it, but overall, I've enjoyed my experience with it so far. Again, it's only been like a week and a half for me, probably a little bit more than that now. But yeah, really enjoying that PlayStation 5.
Yeah, I'm super pumped. I feel like it's going to be a good generation.
100%
got a good feeling. But what about last generation, Nick?
Oh, what? Who cares about last generation? We're in the new age, baby. And with that, of course, we're talking about not this current gen that we're in. Now we're moving back to the past. Samurai Jack, gotta go back to the past. We're going into our top 10 of last gen. What a generation this was. What a great 7 years? Yeah, 7 years. 7 years that this was. But even between, as much as people like to talk about Xbox not having exclusives, we do, like, there's been some real standouts. PlayStation, of course, has been the exclusive train over here, coming out with some real bangers. I was talking to you before with our top games of the generation, of course, and I had exactly 40 games that I wanted to talk about, and I'm like, I probably should take that down a bit. But I do want to mention them briefly, some of them briefly as honorable mentions. Hollow Knight, is one of them. Freaking love Hollow Knight. If you love Souls and side scrollers and Metrovanias, you would definitely owe it to yourself to play it. Final Fantasy VII Remake, great game, great remake. One of the best things Tetsuya Nomura has produced in the last 10 years. And that's including Kingdom Hearts 3, Sunset Overdrive, God of War, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, Shovel Knight, Animal Crossing New Horizons, Red Dead Redemption 2, Monster Hunter World, Ratchet & Clank, Tetris 99, Uncharted 4, Ghost of Tsushima, the Spyro Trilogy, the Crash Trilogy, Days Gone, Yakuza Like a Dragon, Hades, Dragon Quest XI, Metal Gear Solid The Phantom Pain, Gears 5, Shadow of Mordor, Doom, Little Nightmares, Alien Isolation, Ori and the Blind Forest, Oxenfree, and Rayman Legends are all my honorable mentions. That's my honorable.
That's a lot of them.
Yeah, those are my honorable mentions. You should at least try all of them. I think those are like some real good standout games. Yeah.
Stuff to come.
Yeah, right. So I just wanted to shout those out, and especially some of those. I'm like, I'm so. Like, I feel so bad that I'm not able to put it on my top 10 list because, and even my top 10 list is a little bit, maybe a top 12 list. But Hollow Knight definitely is one of them up there where it is a 10 out of 10 game. Like a good majority of these are 10 out of 10 games, and it's just indicative of the gen we had just previously and how great it was. Even starting, it was a little bit shaky, but even going forward, we got some truly magnificent games. But yeah, Sam, let's get into it. I'm gonna start with you since I went on my laundry list of honorable mentions. What is your top 10?
So how do we want to do this? Is yours ranked? Because I've managed to put mine 1 to 10.
Mine's not ranked.
Okay, cool. Do you want to go 1 for 1 then? So I'll go 1, you go 1. So you will get mine in 10 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
For me, we're kicking it off in 10th place with a little indie game called Stardew Valley.
Oh, nice. I was going to put mine in there, but I didn't have enough hours into it. But I do really enjoy that game.
Talking of hours put into it, I put 130 hours into it. It's just such a game that you can just switch off, just tend to your little farm, look after your animals, harvest your crops, get yourself a little wife. It's the Harvest Moon game that we haven't got since the GameCube is what it is. So yeah, my 10th place is Stardew Valley.
Nice. Well, my list is much more frantic and in no particular order. But I want to shout out one of an indie game for an indie game, as you will. I'm gonna shout out Celeste. Celeste means so much to me as a game that was not on my radar come January 2018, I want to say, when it came out. And I saw 10s come up with it, and I'm like, this looks like a game that I could like, but I didn't think that I would absolutely adore it in every single way. That game is as good as any Mario game at 2D Mario game at don't at me. Like, I think that as well as with it being a challenging and fun game, it also has such a compelling story and such a relatable story that I fell absolutely in love with every single aspect of this game. It introduced me to one of my favorite video game composers. I think her name is Lena Raine. I think her name is. That's how you pronounce it. If I'm not, I'm sorry, guys. But that soundtrack I listened to over and over and over again when it came out. It tells a story. Even just the soundtrack itself tells a story about anxiety and depression, and that is it cannot be understated how much of a great game that Celeste is. So
yeah, I can get behind that. So my 9th place game, I just want to preface it by saying we are including Switch games as long as they came out before the launch of this gen. So the only real one that wouldn't be included would be Hyrule Warriors. But so yeah, my 9th place game is another game that's kind of similar to Stardew Valley in terms of just kicking back, relaxing, and doing not a lot. Animal Crossing New Horizons, one from this year. That game is fucking phenomenal. You mentioned it earlier. They're still updating it, still adding new content, and it just came out at such a perfect time that, yeah. So, Animal Crossing, wonderful game, perfect time to come out. Definitely deserving of kind of 9th place in my eyes.
Yeah, Animal Crossing New Horizons, like you said, it definitely came out at a time where we had such a lack of knowing what was gonna happen in the coming months, and not even an understanding of, oh, this is just gonna be, obviously with current events, obviously this is just gonna be a couple of months, and then it turned into a whole year and then some. So I think that it's been so great to see Animal Crossing bring people together in this time, and I think it's been the most important Animal Crossing that has ever been released, just because, you know, like
one of the most important games. Honestly, yeah. I would argue one of the most important games ever to be released.
I 100% agree with you. And like one of our friends, who, or my friend, I don't know if you know Robbie Rob, of at Robbie Rob Plays, friend of the show. He got married and had his reception in Animal Crossing, which was just, it's so cool that you can still have that connection with people. And of course there's things like Discord and else that you can connect with people, but I think that as a game, and because we can't really be face to face too much now, I think that it is so important. And on top of that, just the fact that Animal Crossing New Horizons probably is the best Animal Crossing game, the best iteration of it. It mixes everything that has been loved about the series and more. But yeah, I definitely agree with it being on that list. Unfortunately, it is not on my list. However, one of my favorite games of all time and this past generation is Overwatch. I love Overwatch. I've spent 300 hours on the Xbox version alone. That game was so much fun when it came out, and jumping right into it, getting all those skins. I have never been so engrossed in a multiplayer game in my entire life, and I want to go back to it. But yeah, I haven't played since Wrecking Ball, which was the hamster and the robot unleashed, released. So I haven't exactly played in the most recently, and I think that's due to cross progression and how I haven't really played my Xbox that much, and I want to move over to PC because that's where a lot of my people are playing on. So yeah, I just really love that game. It brought another game that kind of brought people together to me, in terms of multiplayer and a community, given that not all of the community is real great, but the ones that stand out really stand out, and I really enjoy that game.
Never played it, but I think it definitely deserves to be on top 10 lists. So this one, my 8th place, may surprise you, because I don't think it's a game that I've ever mentioned to you. I don't think it's a game that I ever played. Monster Hunter World.
Ooh.
I played so much of that game. It was my first Monster Hunter, and we had a group of 4 or 5 of us who would just get home from work every night and just go and take down some big, scary, scaly boys.
Big meaty boys, if you will.
That game is just... I've said it before, I'm not really a multiplayer guy. I've said it this episode, but that game got me online. That game got me socializing. And I just had a blast with it. The crafting and the kind of hunting specific monsters. Just a really, really good loop.
Yeah, Monster Hunter and Monster Hunter World wasn't necessarily my first game, but it was my first Monster Hunter game. But it definitely was my first full foray into the game and the genre, I guess. I did play like Freedom Wars on the Vita and of course 3 Ultimate, but this was like my first where I'm gonna sit down and play this, and I really got into it. I think I put like 60 hours into it. which is nothing even in considering that game. It's a big meaty experience, but I have never seen like a more inclusive, at least at the time I was playing, inclusive video game community. That was like everyone was always willing to help you if you didn't understand something, because it's a cooperative game and you all want to succeed, because it ends up helping
each other.
Yeah, it ends up helping all of you if you aren't a dick, basically. Yeah, I wanted to include that on my list, but I just didn't. It's not something so personal to me, but I did really enjoy my time with it. Yeah, 100% agree. Another one on my list is another one of the best games of all time. It is the one, the only, Miyazaki's masterpiece, Bloodborne. I have been a fan of Victorian London settings for a very, very long time. This game is a super gothy boy who got some Cthulhu type monsters in here. What could you not love about the game? You know what I'm saying? Like, you got your Cthulhu's in here, you got your Victorian London lights in here, you got a hard, challenging difficulty, you got to obscure everything about the game. Yeah, it's just so fantastic. I have never jumped into a Souls game and been so enveloped in everything that it was, and still to this day, like when I see any sort of Bloodborne art, it just takes me right back, and I just so enjoy that game. It's still my favorite Souls game of all time, and I'm sure it will not be challenged until Bloodborne 2 is announced or something similar.
Yeah, Bloodborne is a game that sits right near the top of my kind of backlog list.
Mm-hmm.
It's one that, maybe I should play Bloodborne, and then it's like, oh, no, something else comes out, or I'm actually in the mood for this. So it's always there. I want to play it, but
yeah, I definitely want to check out, especially like if you're not super into Souls like games, I would definitely check it out, because it at the time it was the most different feeling Souls game, because it's much more fast paced, whereas Souls traditionally is a slow game where you're hitting, backing away, hitting, backing away, whereas like you're all over the place in Bloodborne, and it is just the world that it sets out, the dark, disgusting world that it sets out to make and put you in, is so fantastic. I have never played something so original. I love Bloodborne.
So this is going to be the first. My number 7 is a game that's going to be the first one that you've mentioned. It's not one that you've mentioned in your actual top 10, but it's one that came up in
I mentioned in my top 40.
Yeah. That game is Hollow Knight.
Yeah. Let's talk about it.
I fucking love that game.
10 out of 10.
The atmosphere, the music, the sound effects, the sound design, the art design, that game is, like you say, 10 out of 10.
Yeah. The thing with my list is that I basically tried to put one of everything in there, because I'm like, what makes this gen so great is that so many different years in my game of the year lists, an indie game has been a part of it, and Hollow Knight is no exception. Hollow Knight, it was so hard to fight Hollow Knight or Celeste to be in the list. I think I like Celeste just that little bit more, but Hollow Knight is such a journey. It's, again, going back to Bloodborne, it is such a cool aesthetic. Like, I think that the world that it builds brings you in for every single moment of it, and it provides a challenge without being super obtuse. I think that I see so many things on Etsy that have the little Hollow Knight character with the little lamp. Like, it is so phenomenal. There's not been quite a game like it since, until we get that, that Hollow Knight Silk Song at some point.
Silk Song, baby.
At some point. Yeah, 10 out of 10 game. There's 3 games that I really was challenged with putting on the list, and that was Hollow Knight, Shovel Knight, and Celeste. I think that those exemplify indie in this space of the generation. Of course, there's other things like Hades and such that I haven't mentioned, but yeah, they're just so amazing indies that we got this generation. It feels like a decade. Yeah, so I'm gonna move on to one kind of, we've sort of talked about this in a roundabout way. Spider-Man PS4. There's been superhero games. There has been good superhero games. There has been bad superhero games. And I think that what has engineered something so great, like the last gen now, has been the Batman Arkham games, and I think that it laid the foundation for what Spider-Man, that and Spider-Man 2 on the PS2, laid the foundation for what would be Spider-Man PS4, and it is, to me, the best superhero game of all time. And in fact, going platinum, my first platinum, going back recently playing Miles Morales, I'm reminded how much I love that world that Insomniac created. I love every single point. I love every single point that it does. Every single skill, every single the web slinging, everything in the game is 10 out of 10 perfect. And I have never, like, it's one of the best Spider-Man stories of all time. Yeah, I can't say enough things. I can't wait to platinum Spider-Man Miles Morales. I can't wait for Spider-Man 2 whenever we eventually get it. Like, it's so great.
It made my nearly list. I platinumed it as well. There was just something, just a little bit of a spark missing from it for me for it to crack the top 10. Fantastic game, just missing something. But yeah, that moves me on to my number 6. It's a little game called Super Mario Odyssey.
That one's also on my list.
So, yeah, we've spoken about it in depth in our DualShockers discussion and ranking the 3D Mario games. But Odyssey is just such a great throwback to what Mario is, what Mario can be. Just so good to explore, run around as Mario. The physics, as always, just felt perfect. Each of the worlds is so well designed. That game's just a blast to run through.
Yeah. I'm also going to say Super Mario Odyssey is on my list. I think it's the best Mario game, just period. I not only considering 3D but 2D. Every time I boot it up and start playing it, it fills me with such joy. We talked about earlier with Astro's Playroom how it had such a love for PlayStation, but Mario Odyssey has such a love for Mario and Mario's past and Mario's present and Mario's future. I think that it does things with the gameplay that improve upon the formula, as well as the Cappy stuff. The Cappy stuff is phenomenal. The fact that you get different gameplay segments. It challenges you in different ways. To get all the stars, you have to do different things, not just platforming, but races and different. I can't think of all of them right now. Puzzles,
and
I can't think of all of them right now. But to get like everything, you're basically playing several different games, and I think that Mario Odyssey exemplifies Mario as a character. And especially with the costumes, like seeing like the 64 costume and even some of just the base game costumes, just phenomenal. It's such a celebration, and it is one of the best 3D platformers, if not the best 3D platformer I've ever played.
Yeah, that Mario 64 costume and world was fucking dope. So yeah, seeing as we've both done Odyssey, what are we on? My number 5.
I think
this is. I see your Bloodborne, the grimness of your Bloodborne, and I raise it to the next level with a little game called Darkest Dungeon.
Oh, okay.
Have you ever played Darkest Dungeon?
I dabbled in Darkest Dungeon.
So that game, I hated it the first time I played it. Could not get into it. It's brutally, brutally hard, grim, just like leprosy everywhere, sewers and turd goblins and all sorts of just vile stuff, and just didn't grip me. But then I thought that I would go back and just give it a second shot, and boy did it grip me that second time round. Just a really fun RPG. Fun's probably not the right word, but like a gripping, compelling RPG with like 14 different classes and clever different kind of a clever battle system where party placement really matters, a kind of fear system with stress levels and stuff like that. Just a really fun, brutally hard RPG.
Yeah, I hadn't had much time in it, but everything that I've played of it, again, like you said, brutally hard RPG, and I think that again, but going back to the Victorian London aesthetic, can't say words today. I think that it exemplifies going back to indie games and how great and varied they have been throughout this generation in general and how they've flourished. I think that it's another thing that exemplifies what indie games can do in this market. So, keeping with the horror themes, I think, and one thing that I think is the best remake of this generation, Resident Evil 2 remake. I didn't think it was possible to do what I personally think is better than one remake. I think that it does Leon in such a way that boosts his character. I think that it brings back the horror elements and also keeps the nostalgia of the old game while also bringing in new elements that change the overall. It makes me feel like I'm playing it in 1998 again. You know, like it feels like I'm playing it for the first time again, but also it feels so familiar. I think it exemplifies what a remake can be. I think it definitely also is sort of creating this course corrected story that we got kind of loose with 4 for as great of a Resident Evil game as 4 is. It does kind of botch the overall direction of the story. Just like, so Umbrella is no more. You know, like, I think that we're seeing the end of Resident Evil 3 remake, like, I feel like we're going to a place that can be explored upon more and kind of have this be its own timeline, but at the same time be something that is so nostalgic yet new. And it's such a great game. I want to go and platinum at some point, but man, I'm like 3 trophies away, but it's the hardest 3 trophies. It is. I absolutely love every second of the game, and it feels so great. 100%.
Yeah, I want to check it out, but it's one of those games I've resigned myself to probably never getting around to as much as I want to. But we'll see. Maybe time will be kind to me one day.
You should do it. You should at least check it out, I would say.
Yeah, I will certainly try. But my top 4 now comprises of 2 Nintendo games and 2 PlayStation games. In 4th place is Fire Emblem 3 Houses. That game, woof, boy, it gripped me like a game hasn't gripped me for a while, at least when I played it. It's a really interesting story. really good gameplay, really good systems. Had that Persona vibe of like you spend half your time in a school and then the other half of the time out on the battlefield, turn-based strategy type stuff. It's a really damn good game. I'm a bit of a turn-based strategy kind of fan. Loved Advance Wars. Wargroove was great. And yeah, Fire Emblem Three Houses was fantastic.
Yeah, that's a game that I haven't spent as much time in as I want. I definitely think that there is something so special in there, and the fact that it's kind of borrowing from other JRPGs that are doing such great work, like Persona 5, you know, and kind of not just cashing in, but developing in on that formula, and developing on its own Fire Emblem formula. And I think it's definitely, from what I've played so far, it's definitely the best Fire Emblem that I've played personally. But yeah, I do respect the hell out of Fire Emblem Three Houses. So I'm kind of struggling because there, like I said, there is a top 12, but I'm kind of struggling here. I want to go with, you know what? I'm going with it. Nidhogg 2. Nidhogg 2 is my favorite party game of all time. That you can boot up that game and have anybody play it. It is as simple as the directional pad, the square button, and you're off. And it is so fun when you can get just two people freaking going at it in a Nidhogg game, and you're like, run! Okay, go! Stab him! Ah, like they're so, it gets so heated in Nidhogg, and with Nidhogg 2, it evolved it, and it is so fun. There's so many funny moments that I've had with friends over a couple of games of Nidhogg. So if I'm putting a party game in here, it's Nidhogg 2.
I missed out on the Nidhogg phase. I heard so many good things about it, but it's just one that passed me by. Kind of, I guess it had its moment, its day in the sun, like Among Us and Phasmophobia are now. There was kind of a Nidhogg phase.
Definitely try it out. Just give it a shot. I know it goes on sale for like $5 a lot. Try it out with your girlfriend or with somebody online. Like, I haven't played online, but I can't imagine it's not too different. Yeah, I 100% like that is something like Among Us, where it's anybody and their grandma can try it out and kind of have a good time with it.
So my top 3 we are into now. 2 of these games came out this year, so you could argue there's a little bit of recency bias, but I would say not, because they're all phenomenal games. But my third place for game of the generation is Last of Us Part 2. We done our spoiler cast on it earlier this year. You should go check that out. What a game! What a video game, Nick.
Yeah, I honestly go back and forth. It's not like a thing where I go back and forth where I'm like, I don't know if I love it or I hate it. I'm more like, I don't know if I like it or I love it. Like,
I love it.
Like, honestly, like 100%, I feel that Last of Us Part 1 is my favorite Last of Us of the last 2 Last of Us games. I still love that original story. But Last of Us 2 is such a masterpiece. It is so well done. It's such a well done story. I do think that there is some things that could have been changed about it, but also talking about it over here with being my game of the year. Like, every time I hear the song, well, first off, the acoustic version of Take On Me, and then Future Days, like, I begin to weep. Like, I find myself loving the game even more. I think it's probably because I haven't had enough time to sit with it as I did with The Last of Us, but it's definitely holds a place, and it feels like an extension of Last of Us Part 1 rather than just a sequel. You know, like, it feels like a story that is actively happening in this world. But at the same time, like, I also feel like I wish that The Last of Us Part 1 was the ending. You know? Like, I go back and forth. Like, I think that this is such a great addition to the Last of Us mythos, but at the same time, like, I love the ambiguity of The Last of Us Part 1 so much that I'm conflicted with this game. Like, overall, fantastic game. Wonderful game, great narrative, but I find myself being like, it could have not happened and I still would have been okay. That's why I feel like I'm so conflicted with the game itself.
Yeah, I get that.
And I definitely feel like it adds a lot, but I also feel like we couldn't, like we could have gone without it, you know? Like, I don't know.
I don't know. It gripped me. I don't want to think of it as, oh, could we have gone without it? That's, in my mind, not. This isn't any way to shit on you or anybody, but I don't think that's a critique you can have of a game like it's here. So
yeah, it's less of a thing where I don't want it. It's not a thing like I don't want it, because I loved every single second that I had with it, but I'm also at a point where I'm like, I kind of, this is what Naughty Dog and Neil Druckmann and Haley Gross, who worked on this game, do so well with the writing of The Last of Us. It feels like they all feel like complete stories, and even if we had Last of Us Part 2 in a solid vacuum and only had Last of Us Part 2, I still think that it would be a great game.
Would work. Yeah, I think. Go on, sorry.
I would say, however, I think that because I love Last of Us Part 1 so much, it makes it harder to not necessarily accept Part 2 happened, but like, it gives me a definitive ending to The Last of Us Part 1 rather than the ambiguity. And I feel like it, as much as it raises part 1 quite a bit, I feel like it also does equally so for the ambiguity of the ending of 1. So I'm so conflicted. Like, I think you know what, it's on my list. It's on my list. Like, the very fact that I'm talking about it in this extent, it's definitely on my list. So yeah.
Yeah, I think you have good criticisms of it, and I think they're all valid points. And I think, as an opinion in a vacuum, kind of, should Last of Us Part 1 have been the definitive ending? Possibly. But I don't think you can critique Last of Us Part 2 on the fact that it exists when it perhaps couldn't have existed, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, what's your next game?
Well, I think it's Last of Us Part 2. Yeah, I think it's Last of Us Part 2. Like, man, like I said, the very fact that I even talked about it in such a way, and it impacted me so profoundly, I think going down the road I'm going to feel better that it is on my list rather than it isn't, because like, Last of Us Part 1 only gets better with age, in my opinion. I still think that Last of Us Part 1 is, in terms of a narrative, is a much better narrative, but I think, obviously, in gameplay wise, Last of Us Part 2 much better.
Yeah. So then we move on to my top 2, and this will surprise absolutely nobody.
I think we're I think we're gonna have a same number 1, possibly.
I know we're not gonna have the same number 1. I know we're not gonna have the same number 1.
Episode Maybe 1 Racer.
God damn it! It just has to. It just fucking has to. No, you could probably say my top 2 right now. Go on. Go on, do it.
So yours is Persona 5 for sure.
Yeah, it's Persona 5 Royal.
Yeah.
I'll go into those.
I can't think of what. Oh, Breath of the Wild. You fucking nerd. It's not even the best game that came out that year. Persona 5 is the best game that came out that year, and don't at me.
Yeah, my top 2. Second place, I go really back and forward on these, and these are probably my top 2 games of all time, potentially. Breath of the Wild and Last of Us, Persona 5 Royal. both phenomenal games. If you've watched any episode that we've ever done, you know how much I love these 2 games. Both brilliant for their own reasons, but just mind-blowingly good games.
Yeah, I disagree with you on Breath of the Wild because I'm a turd. I think Persona 5... There's a reason that Persona 5 is my second favorite game of all time. I want to put more time in Royal, but by default, Royal is the better game just because it gives you more content and it gives you... it updates the game in such a way, even before the new content, that makes it a better game in general. What can be said about Persona 5? And I'm gonna say my number 2 is Persona 5. Or I don't know, number 2. My number 1 is Persona 5, but no particular order for my list again. Persona 5 hit me at a time that I was struggling. That was the same year that I lost my great grandma, somebody that was very close to me, and I started playing that game at her house. And it's something, and I've been wanting to do a video on this before, but I doubt I'll get to it. I'll get to it at some point, but we'll see. It made me feel the same way I felt at the end of Kingdom Hearts 2, where I'm like, holy shit, games can do this. And not only that, but holy shit, JRPGs can do this. Impact me in such a way that I love every single one of these characters. I love the development that you have throughout the game. I love every single aspect about the game. It touched me in so many different ways. Persona 5 cannot be understated. It is such a great game. And
as close to perfect as you get in a video game.
Absolutely. And I absolutely adore it. Given saying that I've only had 20 hours into Persona 5 Royal, so just been an interesting year. All right,
You've got one more.
I'm looking at my list right now, and I'm gonna do this backwards order. I have Hitman 2. Because those Hitman games,
you can leave that off.
Those Hitman games, don't sleep on those Hitman games. They are so good. So good. The other one I have is Life is Strange. And Life is Strange, I want to put on this list so bad because it, again, another game that really touched me in a very big way.
But these more honourable mentions you're sneaking in.
I think so.
At the last minute.
I think so because I technically had a top 12 and I didn't realize it. But I have to put it in there because I've spent more than 100 hours into it and I've gotten the platinum and wanted to go back to it many a times. It's Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Assassin's Creed Odyssey started out and I did not like it at all. I did not. And again, this is not necessarily my number 2 at all. This is just in no particular order. That world, the characters, I think that it Witcher started a thing where the side quests were very meaningful, and I think all the side quests are super meaningful in this game. I haven't felt in love with an Assassin's Creed game since Black Flag. And Odyssey brought it in such a way that I'm like, oh shit, I actually care about Cassandra. Even the DLC, I actually care about these characters. But I had such a fun time and dumped so many hours into it, and it's a game that I could endlessly go back to. It's weird putting it in my games of the generation, but I think it's one of the best open world games that we've got in this generation. And that is just my opinion. Also, I fall in line with a lot of things where people who love Assassin's Creed in general don't really love Odyssey because of the it's not really an Assassin's Creed game, which I agree, but it's the same reason that I love it so much is because it is kind of its own thing, and I love being immersed in that world of Greece, and it's so good, so good. But Life is Strange and Hitman 2 are so phenomenal.
That's it. That's our top 10s.
That's our top 10s, guys.
So
that's
good
so
ass
hard.
Video games.
It's so hard because there's so many great video games this gen, and I feel bad putting Assassin's Creed Odyssey in my list, but at the same time, I don't regret it at any point. Yeah, what a generation, and what a generation we have looking forward to us. To be honest, like starting out this PS5 generation, we're already off to the races, and we're already immersed in such greatness. Anyways, of course, it's the ending of the podcast, and as with every podcast, we end with a little game for y'all. As you may remember, the Calm Phantoms, Sam.
Thank you.
Sam's team. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Are at 14. And the Defiant Stallions are at 12 right now. However, I have a chance to redeem myself as Sam has developed this nice little game for me. Sam.
Sorry. You've got 5 questions coming your way. Each kind of every quiz we've done has had a theme. So it's been, has it got a Switch port, or fictional video game locations, or star, shine, or moon. Today's theme is, did it get a licensed game?
Ooh,
so
I'm gonna be good at this. I think I'm gonna be good at this.
I'm gonna name a film, and you're gonna tell me if it got a licensed video game or not.
I think I'm gonna be good at this because I played a lot of licensed video games back in the day.
Let's see. So, number 1, the B movie.
Yep.
Did it get?
It got several different. It got the Wii version. It got the Xbox 360 version. Hell yeah. That game sucks though.
It did, correct. It got a Nintendo DS. No. A DS version, PS2, Wii, PC, and Xbox 360. I feel like this next one is going to be easy for you. Chronicles of Riddick.
Yep. Yeah, those games actually good. Actually pretty good. The escape from Butcher Bay and assault on something I can't remember.
God damn it!
Yeah,
it's like the star, shine, or moon all over again.
I played so many licensed games.
Damn it! Question 3: Planet of the Apes.
I mean, technically, are you talking about the recent Planet of the Apes? Because they did get like that weird license game. I guess technically that Andy Serkis worked on like a couple years ago.
I wasn't talking about that one. I was talking about the original.
I don't think so.
It did, but I feel like I've thrown you off now because we've got a bit of a contentious one here because the original Planet of the Apes did get a licensed game that came out on the original Game Boy and the PS1.
You're pulling a real sneaky one there. All right, no, you know what? We'll count it. We'll count it.
Yeah.
We'll count it. We'll count it against me. I feel like my license.
You'll get these next 2 to claw it back anyway.
Okay, fair enough.
Shark Tale.
Yeah, I played that game. That is a bad game. That is a real bad game. I haven't seen the movie in a long time. Probably a bad movie too. Yeah, that game.
So that's 3 from 4. Final one. This seems like a Nick ass thing. Twilight.
Oh no. We're counting mobile games?
Mainline games. No. So main consoles. No Twilight.
No Twilight. Correct. Yeah, I was like, I don't think so. Unless we got some weird.
I tried to throw you off because I put the first 4 as all yeses. Yeah. So I figured maybe he might then think
Well, that's why I thought the Planet of the Apes, because I'm like, technically, like the recent Planet of the Apes games did get like a licensed game, but I would have never guessed that the Game Boy Color game. So even given that context, I didn't.
Well, there it is, 4 points. So that puts you back in the lead.
The Defiant Stallions at 16. While the Calm Phantoms, these measly Calm Phantoms over here, at a 14.
Don't worry, I'm around behind you now, so that's you're
fair.
So once we have our guest on next month and we do video game 20 questions, we'll see who's laughing.
We shall see who has the last laugh. But anyways, that is our show, guys. Well, what a great one it was. I think it kind of obviously the thing that we took out this month was the news. I just want to address that real quick. The fact that I don't think that our news segments are very informative more than what people are already putting out there. And I feel like this show kind of does better when it is just a topic show and of what we've been playing, because we do go into that very hard. And of course, the impressions and the total discussion, the topic of the show and the game are really the heart of the show. So we're kind of gonna cut news, and it'll give us a time to actually record it pre-recorded, ahead of time. So yeah, I think it's
and
pretty well.
when we have guests on, rather than make them sit for a news segment, it will give them the chance to tell us their underrated game that we do, but it will also then give them a chance to join in on a bigger topic with us, right, which I think is a better format for the. And
it's not like we won't talk about news, but like I'm sure things will come up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think overall, like doing a dedicated news segment kind of hurt the show. So as we figure it out, here we are. Sam, where can they find you?
Over on Twitter at Captain Woodsy, and then if you want to read my musings, my reviews, my news writing, and anything else, check me out over at jewelshockers.com.
And of course, you can find me at this very channel, youtube.com/ShockingMcPain. Like and subscribe if you like the show. And I did a PS5 rundown video on this very channel. Check it out. I did a very good job on it, I think. And if you want to hear more of my thoughts on this beautiful console, you can check it out right over there. And of course, over at youtube.com/DualShockers, I am putting out some content there. There'll be some. I already have the Yakuza Like a Dragon review. You can watch that over there, along with quite a few things that are coming up in the pipeline that are going to be really excited, especially for people like aspirants such as yourselves who love some video games. Yeah.
Go and watch the video that Nick's done of the PS5 unboxing and just see how happy he looks when that package turns up. And he's opening it because he looks like one happy boy.
I was one happy boy, and the UPS, the Mr. UPS man, did not have me sign for it. So I was like, oh well, I guess that kind of like, what if he would have delivered it in the wrong house? But at the same time, I'm glad that he didn't, and I got it, and it was very cool. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Just do some co-op over at your own houses, and play some Nidhogg. Anyways, that's not really a co-op game, but at the same time, thank you all for joining us. Check you later. Have a great rest of your holidays.